On today's show, Mavs governor Patrick Dumont makes his first public comments after the Luka trade and proves that he's still missing the entire point.
I'm here because I have to be here.
Explain yourself. Sorry.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Dallas is going to get a seat at the table.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member covering the Dallas Mavericks for 10 years. Thanks for being an everyday or making Locked On Mavs your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Today's episode, we're getting into Patrick Dumont's comments. He tries to sympathize with the fans. He also talked about how the team is not moving out of Dallas, which is interesting. He talked about how did he and Nico Harrison underestimate the response that people were going to have. And he also says he thinks the Dallas Mavericks are better after the trade. So we'll talk about his comments, but let's start here. There are kind of two sides every time an owner or a GM speaks after a trade that everybody has just come to their conclusions on. If you're like me, you think that this trade is bad and is very short-sighted, and it's making a bet against a player that I would never make a bet on because Luka Doncic is one of those players. When you get a top 3 player in the NBA, you bet on that talent. You do everything you can to make that talent feel welcome, to feel part of the organization, to feel like he's in maybe not complete control, but to feel like he is welcome, to feel like he is part of it and that he is leading the team and that you give them everything. That's how this is set up. Basketball is built around stars and everything is built around that player. And it's built on trying to get those players. Look at what the Wizards are doing right now. Look at what the Jazz are doing right now. The Jazz are going to be bad for a decade, maybe more, in the hopes they get a player 75% as good as Luka Doncic. And teams bend over backwards to try and make sure that their franchise is open and their franchise is welcoming to stars like this, that it is a good environment for stars to thrive, to come to. Hey, come to our team in free agency. Making a case, all that. And I don't think you come back from certain moves like this, where you trade a star player at 25 years old. And so, yes, we did the show yesterday where after the Rockets game where this Mavericks team is going to be good and this Mavericks team is going to have a good short-term future in the next couple of years. They're going to be a good basketball team. Maybe they have a chance to win a title. But looking forward and looking at what this team is going to be after Kyrie leaves at some point or retires or whatever, Anthony Davis leaves or retires or whatever, what then? What then for the Dallas Mavericks? And so I'm going to go through this article. It's an article from Brad Townsend, Dallas Morning News. Great stuff. Got a lot of really good things. Subscribe to that and go check out the Dallas Morning News. The thing that I just still can't get over is why they're still kicking Luka Doncic on the way out. What's the point? You made the deal. You made the trade. Your actions speak for it. Why do you have to still, on the way out, say things like this, quote, "In my mind, the way teams win is by focus, having the right character, by having the right culture, and having the right dedication to work as hard as possible to create a championship-winning outcome. And if you're not doing that, you're going to lose." He's talking about Luka. Think about the things he just said. By focus. Well, I guess Luka didn't have the focus. Have the right character. Guess Luka didn't have the character. Having the right culture. Guess Luka is not part of the culture. Nico Harrison said that. The right dedication. Guess Luka didn't have the right dedication. And if you don't do that, you're going to lose. They just went to the NBA Finals. You were there in the first year that you were a governor. I just don't understand the point of this, to come out and say this. He then, to me, this is when he shows his cards. He says, if you look at the greats of the league, the people you and I grew up with, Patrick Dumont, born in 1974, 1975. His Wikipedia page says both of the years. I think that's kind of funny. So born in the mid-70s. So think about the players he's thinking about. If you look at the greats of this league, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Kobe Bryant, Shaq, they worked really hard every day with a singular focus to win. And if you don't have that, it doesn't work. And if you don't have that, you shouldn't be part of the Dallas Mavericks. This is what's missing the point to me. You're worried about Luka Doncic and his beer consumption? You just named Larry Bird, one of the biggest beer drinkers ever. You want to talk about focus, and you want to talk about determination and having the right character. You want to talk about Michael Jordan and the amount of times he was out through all hours of the night, the fights he got in practice, when he's out gambling, and there's so many things there. This is what star players do. You want to talk about Kobe Bryant and everything that happened with the case in Denver? You want to talk about Shaquille O'Neal he came into camp one year at 400 pounds? He said that. Shaq has said that. Shaq did not have the focus. He had the talent. And you bet on the talent and you try to make all those other things work. He literally gave 4 examples and none of them work. Kobe Bryant, the aura around Kobe Bryant, he obviously had the dedication. He had, he won championships and all that. He had a lot of those things. And each of those guys has one of those things for sure. And they all won championships. So yes, he was correct that they all won championships and they all got it done. But they didn't do it by having all the things that he mentioned either. So he shows his hand by saying, hey, here's some examples. Okay, well, maybe they're off the cuff and maybe he just named some off the top of his head, but they're pretty bad ones off the top of his head. Kobe Bryant would come in and dress down teammates at practice. Talking about Smush Parker, you don't got what it takes, and going at people. That's not what people would consider the right culture or character. But that is the killer mentality. Luka Doncic has that. We've seen it over and over again where he goes up to Rudy Gobert and is like, I'm going to take you out. That's what I do. That's what I do. He yelled at him. Said words I can't say on this show. And so if you want to have the guys that have all those things right, all the things coaches look for, sure. But that's not where genius is. Genius lies in the crazy. I've used this example before, but Van Gogh chopped off his own dang ear. Like, you have to deal with some crazy if you want to get the genius. And Luka is a genius basketball player. And there's only been one LeBron James, right? Or Bill Russell or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? Where the guys do all the things that you want. But he literally named 4 examples that like Shaq had issues with his weight all the time. Larry Bird talked about how much beer he would drink all the time. More than Luka, for sure. Kobe Bryant had issues. Michael Jordan would stay out at all hours of the night gambling. Is that dedication? Is that character? Is that culture? Is that what Patrick Dumont is referring to? And so Patrick Dumont continues on with his quotes. That's who we want. I'm unwavering on this. The entire organization knows this. That's how I operate outside of basketball. This is the only way to be competitive and to win. If you want to take a vacation, don't do it with us. I don't really know what that means. I'm not going to pretend like I know what he means on a business sense like that. Does not seem like it's healthy. Then he also said, look, I think there's a lot of things that come into play when you decide the roster. And culture is very important. That's what we're focused on. Again, another thing saying that Luka was not good for the culture. What star player is? LeBron James has called out teammates and has gotten teammates traded over and over again. Is that good for the culture? Do you think that creates a culture of winning by guys all the time worrying if LeBron James is going to decide that he's not good, that player is not good enough for the roster anymore? Man, it's frustrating to me to read these comments again. Nico Harrison said some things about culture, said some things about fit and all that, and then kicked Luka out the door. And then the reports that came out, you guys want to get mad. The Mavs fans want to get mad at Tim McMahon, but he's just reporting what the organization thinks. And the organization thought that Luka wasn't taking his conditioning seriously and apparently wasn't good for the culture. And Patrick Dumont confirms this out loud. And I think it just misses the point. The point in all this is you had that star player. You had a Kobe Bryant. You had a Larry Bird. You had a Michael Jordan. He did it in his own way. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA. Does he look like he is like a A1 level athlete? It's like it's different now. You can win in different ways. You just went to the finals. If the issues were his leg was cooked, the injuries, those kind of things, then yes. Hey, we had concerns about Luka Doncic and his conditioning and the injuries were piling up, and we made a decision for our team. Honestly, that comes off better to me. Again, I do think that Dumont is damned if he does say what he thinks and damned if he doesn't, because there's just so much frustration about the Luka trade. It doesn't make sense. It's so short-sighted. But I think he misses the point in bringing up even bringing up the examples he even brought up. You had that star. You had the star that you wanted. He just wasn't doing it the way that you wanted. Coming up, I think he also missed the boat trying to sympathize with the fans, saying he understands what they feel. Why do I think that? We'll talk about that and more coming up. Peace out. Today's episode is brought to you by Skims. I'm wearing Skims right now. They're great. I love wearing them. They keep their shape. They keep fit. They hold snug. They keep everything in place. You love it. I've had issues with underwear before with you have the band that like rolls over, things like that. I've tried to find the right kind of boxer briefs for me, and I've tried Skims. They sent me some, and I'm buying some myself now. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com and Skims stores. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop down that follows. Go check out Skims, see what they have. They have all kinds of stuff for an active lifestyle, for leisure, for comfort. They have all kinds of other things too besides underwear. So check out what they have. The lightweight material makes it feel amazing, almost like you're wearing nothing at all. I agree. Let them know that we sent you. Again, select podcast in the survey. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com. And if you're looking for the perfect gift for Valentine's Day, Skims just launched their best Valentine's shop ever, available in sizes for men, women, kids, and even pets. We're going to have to go check out Skims for pets. Check out skims.com.
Explain yourself. Sorry.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. We appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. Subscribe to our Locked On Mavs text line. You can text me and Isaac, ask us questions and all kinds of things. We'll send you messages and alerts on all kinds of different things that we do all throughout game day. We'll send you messages on who's playing, who's available, all that kind of stuff. And so subscribe to that, 214-643-8637. Check the link in the description or the QR code as well. All right, Patrick Dumont makes some comments about Luka Doncic and Luka Doncic trade. I appreciate that he made comments and appreciate that he came out and said what he said because it gives us an insight on what they think. I just don't agree with what they think. And I think as somebody that is a COO of a company should understand that people aren't going to agree with him. And I think it's probably happened. He's made some unpopular decisions in the past. I don't know a lot about his business with Las Vegas Sands and all that, but I'm sure he's made decisions that people didn't like. I'm not sure he's made a decision that people didn't like to this level. And so he says this in the article, the Dallas Morning News article by Brad Townsend. It's hard to make tough decisions, Dumont says. And it's hard to make the right decisions when they're tough. And it's easy to do nothing. But when you want to pursue excellence in an organization, you have to make the tough decisions and stand by them and keep going. He's right. They did this. They made the tough decision. It was really tough. I don't agree with it. I don't think it was great. But they are standing by him. He's right about that. I almost started this show saying I'm going to do two truths and a lie. This is a truth. This is a truth in this article. He did make a tough decision, and they are standing by it. But then he talks about how emotional this week is for people. And here's where I think he missed the boat again. He said, quote, "Look, it's been an emotional week for everybody. It really has. I clearly understand that. And I really appreciate that. I'm a big Luka fan. My family are big Luka fans. I have a really deep appreciation for what he brought to this team and what he brought to Dallas and the excitement he brings. He's an electrifying player. I want you to know I really sympathize with all our fans who feel hurt. Look, as far as I'm concerned, Luka is a Mav for life. And I really wish him nothing but happiness and success in his career as he continues in LA. No, that doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. You move on from a guy like that. You make a public bet that says that guy is not going to reach his potential. That's not what fans do. So you don't sympathize with them. And maybe the fan and the fanatic are out there and completely over their skis because they think that I'm going to believe in this guy no matter what. He's our guy. And maybe Patrick Dumont's looking at it a little bit more objectively. And so that's what he says. But you can't try to sympathize with them. You don't feel the same way that they do. There's no way. And to say Luka is a Maverick for life, he could have been. He could have been a Maverick for life. They're just making this bet against Luka Doncic that he would have been one of the best players in the NBA, and he already was. It's like that's what you're trying to go. That's what you're trying to go get. Every single GM in the NBA. Nico Harrison talked about they had all these. Well, there's all these teams lining up to get Luka in the offseason. Yeah, why do you think they're doing that? Nico Harrison didn't want to make it public, the conversations he was having with Lakers GM Rob Pelinka. Why do you think he didn't want that? Because everybody would have got up in arms. Other GMs would have come out of the woodwork. There would have been all kinds of maneuvering and things like that because other teams would want Luka. Executives all over the league. There was reports coming out all over the league this week saying, man, we're just frustrated that he didn't open it up to an open bidding. And so for Patrick Dumont to come out and say, we sympathize with the fans. Look, with all of our fans who feel hurt. As far as I'm concerned, Luka is a Maverick for life, and I really wish him nothing but success. I think I believe that part. But you don't sympathize with the fan. They're a kid. I keep saying this because it's true. I know people that have named their kid Luka. They felt that closely to it. They held on to it. He was special to them. It meant something to see a guy go from to see a franchise go from Dirk Nowitzki, the guy that did everything for this franchise, to pass the torch almost literally. There's no torches in basketball. There should be. To almost quite literally pass the torch from himself to Luka Doncic. In a religious experience, I will call it that. Because they have chants and they have gatherings and they have cheers and they have literature. I guess this podcast is literature. They have written stuff. To see that and to go from that guy to a new guy that was the guy that was promised, the star that was promised, and to bet that guy isn't going to make it. You made that decision. You can't sympathize with the fans too, because the fans wouldn't have made that decision. They wouldn't have come to that. And maybe it's just a difference in opinion on how good Luka is. And maybe it's just evaluating talent, and maybe that's what it is. But I just don't think you can sympathize with fans. They went out and had a protest. There was a coffin. There's all kinds of things out there in that protest. Never seen a protest for a sports team before. Those fans are right to feel that way. To have just everything special about what it means to be a Dallas Mavericks fan right now ripped out of it. We're just going to bring in this guy, Anthony Davis, who's great player. We're just going to bring him in. Kyrie just got brought in a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And now we're going to win this championship. Not with a guy that we've been standing behind since day one, who came over from Slovenia. Came over from Spain, Real Madrid, he was playing for. And we watched him grow for 6 years. Patrick Dumont, you just came here in December of 2023, in the middle of the season. It hasn't even been a full season yet. It's been a full year, but hasn't even been a full season yet. To make that choice, no one's going to believe that you feel the same way the fans felt. So then the article goes on, and the question was asked, a great question. Do you think that, did you and Nico Harrison underestimate the response from fans? And Dumont says, not at all. I think it shows that the passion our fans have for the team. I feel the same way. How? How do you feel the same way? You made the choice to look at fans and to look at the protests that happened and to look at the fans that are as frustrated as they are, taking it out on everybody that they can find. To then go and say, I feel the same way. No, there's no way. You had a buyback of your season tickets. You had over 2,000 people quit on Mavs TV, their subscription thing that Tim Cato reported on. You had so many fans so frustrated with this team and so frustrated in that decision that they went to those levels. To the point where some made death threats, which is ridiculous. But you couldn't have felt the same way. And then Dumont says this, quote, you know how I felt when we lost. You don't know how I felt when we lost. The finals, and I was standing there with the confetti falling on my head in Boston. I was pretty unhappy. I'll never forget that. I was there too. The confetti was falling on me while I was doing the show. And I've been doing this show since before Luka Doncic was drafted. We followed his whole career. My career, I have so many people remind me this all the time in my comments. I have my career to thank because of Luka Doncic. I agree. He's helped push me forward and this show forward. And it's how I felt. You don't know how I felt when we lost. You should have felt like Luka needed more help. He was the one that got you there. You don't get there without Luka Doncic. Wrapped up in all the all the coverings and the bandages and all the things he was dealing with, the injuries. He fought through that. He fought through all that for this franchise. And maybe some of that was his fault. The conditioning, it is a concern. But he went through all that. Loyalty never fades away. That's written on a statue outside of the arena. And to say, I'll never forget that. I was pretty unhappy. It was devastating for some people. Devastating. But it wasn't because of Luka that you didn't win. I just don't understand it. I don't understand the trying to meet fans where they are. You just can't. You're on a different playing field. It's been 1 calendar year since you've been in the Mavs sphere. Maybe longer. There probably talks. Buying a team probably takes a long time, so I don't understand that, I guess. But you can't come in and say I feel the same way. You made the decision, man. I don't get that. I just don't understand it. Trying to sympathize with the fans and then also kicking Luka on the way out and saying he doesn't fit the culture, doesn't fit the character, the focus, all those things. There's a tone deafness to this again. Nico Harrison had his tone deafness when he came out making jokes at the original press conference. Nico Harrison hasn't had another press conference. He just had one at an away game where no players were playing in that game in Cleveland. We'd all love to flee to the Cleve. I appreciate everybody that gets my 30 Rock references. Some tone deafness here from Patrick Dumont, I think. And I think that he proves again that he's missing the point on what Luka Doncic meant to this organization by trying to say that he felt like he knows what people feel. These comments prove that he doesn't. Coming up, I do agree with him on one thing. I don't think the Dallas Mavericks are leaving Dallas for Las Vegas. We'll talk about all that and more coming up.
Dallas is going to get a seat at the table.
Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds, things that you can use to get in on the action. Right now, you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets. Go check it out. See what is available. They got all kinds of stuff for the NBA. They don't have the Mavs-Lakers tab anymore on the NBA. Maybe it's cooled down a little bit, but they got finals odds for a championship. Mavs are plus 4,200. They're behind the Clippers, plus 3,600. Grizzlies, plus 2,700. Bucks, plus 3,200. Giannis just got a calf injury. I don't know about that one. Lakers, plus 2,200. The Lakers have way better odds than the Mavericks, and I find that interesting because the Lakers don't have any centers. I thought centers was the one thing that was supposed to win championship. Celtics still the number one favorite, plus 195. Thunder, plus 230. Cavs, plus 850. There's all kinds of stuff like that. Go check it out. You can put down $5. You get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
Explain yourself.
Sorry.
All right, let's get into some more comments from Patrick Dumont. Man, I got fired up again. It's like every time you think we're moving on, I'm fired up again about some comments. Patrick Dumont, damned if he does, damned if he doesn't make comments about the Luka trade, but he did, and he showed what he thought about this trade, and I disagree with a lot of things he said. But why did they make the deal? Okay. He made a bunch of comments in this article from Dallas Morning News from Brad Townsend about why they made the deal. Do you think the Dallas Mavericks are better now after the trade? He says, I do. Quote, the trade we made this past week were about improving our basketball team for reasons we talked about. None of this was about finances. That was another conspiracy theory. People were bringing up this is all about the money and all that. And I even considered maybe they didn't think the $350 million deal was worth the investment of Luka. And I think that is now proven to be true in a way, but it wasn't just about not paying $350 million. This he's right about. He says this, and I actually feel better about the Mavs ownership because of this statement right here. He says, quote, this is not a resource consideration. For people who understand the NBA, and I know that you do, the salary cap is basically the cap. This is just a risk allocation decision, right? No problem signing someone to the Supermax. It's just a portion of your cap. So it wasn't an issue. Happy to do it if it's there. No problem. Great. That's totally what it is. He's completely right about that. I've flamed him for all these things in this article, but he's right that it is not, if they were just trying to save cost, it wasn't, like, not signing Luka Doncic to the deal wasn't going to do that. Right? The money is the money. It's a cap. It's a percentage. And whether Luka's 40% of it or I guess now 0% of it, that 40% is going to go somewhere. And so why did they make the deal? He thinks the team is better, and then he says this. And I think this is key in all this, and it still comes back to what everybody publicly is pointing to. Patrick Dumont says, quote, "I've said it all along. In Nico, we trust. You have to respect his track record. You have to respect his intellect. You have to respect his relationships and his judgment and his point of view and the way he communicates. I respect that. Our whole family respects that. And the whole family are the owners. They own, 69% of the organization? 67%? They respect, and they look at Nico Harrison and they respect his opinions. And Nico Harrison decided to make the move. Brought it to the Dumonts, and the Dumonts agreed, looked at the cost benefit and said, it's not going to be worth it to keep Luka, deal with these injuries all the time, deal with the conditioning all the time, pay him the huge max. It's just is the cost benefit is not worth it. But they took the humanity out of it. And that's the thing that's tough, because all the Mavs fans were connected to Luka in a way that is just different than bringing somebody in for this first year with Anthony Davis. The Mavs fans can appreciate Anthony Davis, end up loving Anthony Davis. There's just not going to be the same level of connection. And there's something special about that connection to a star, getting to a title that only Mavericks fans may really appreciate. Because they had Dirk do that. And so another title won't feel as special as the 2011 one. A Luka one may have. Luka gets them to the Western Conference Finals in 2022. They lose Brunson. They've missed the entire postseason. Then they come back and make the finals the next year with Kyrie Irving. And you go, and then they lose against Boston. They don't even look close against them. And then maybe Luka comes back, and we'll never know. We'll never know what the redemption story was for Luka, but they had moments. They had moments of the story. You just didn't get to see the ending of it. But Patrick Dumont trusted Nico Harrison, made the decision, and then he said this, quote, "All of our actions, everything that we do is about improving our team with a goal to win championships." That's it. They think this. My question is, to win championships at what cost? And now you've got to win it. I was very clear on that with Nico Harrison. All right, do you know what you just did? Now you have to. With Luka Doncic, it was like, all right, can we put it together? Now it's you have to. That's the expectation now. All right, you made this crazy move to move on from Luka, a top 3 player in the NBA. You got to win a title now, because to make it all worth it, it's that. I agree with him on this. I agree with Patrick Dumont that the Mavs aren't moving. He said, quote, "The Dallas Mavericks are not moving to Las Vegas. There is no question that. That is the answer unequivocally. The Dallas Mavericks are the Dallas Mavericks, and they will be in Dallas." Makes no sense. The article Brad Townsend points out, why would you move a team from the 4th biggest media market to the 40th? And the Board of Governors would have to agree on that, and I just don't think there's just too much money in Dallas. For how much money would be in Vegas, I just can't imagine that they would do that to a fan base. Take all your conspiracy theories and all that. That's one I never believed, that they would try to move that. Maybe in my darkest moments, I believe that. I also want to say this about some of the protest stuff yesterday and about Patrick Dumont saying he sympathizes with fans and all that kind of stuff. It was interesting to watch yesterday at the game and then to see the reaction to people online and outside in the protest, because there was such a dichotomy in the protest outside, the online reaction, to the frustration, the anger, and then inside, it's like none of that was allowed. And on one hand, as a organization and as a corporation, like, you get to decide what you want. You can't just put the F word on a sign and put it up, right? You can't just come in naked and go to a game, right? Like they can make certain decisions on what they allow and what they don't. It's their prerogative. So they allowed people to protest outside, and they could have just sent them away, right? They could have just said, "Hey, we gotta leave." I guess is Victory Plaza public space? I can't imagine that it is. And so they could have just pushed the protest somewhere else. They allowed it right outside the doors. But then they didn't allow. I heard from so many people. Some people put duct tape over Dallas Mavericks on their gear and stuff, and fans were asked to remove the duct tape. I heard that there were chants. We talked about it on the show yesterday. I only heard one guy try to get the "Fire Nico, sell the team" chant going, and that's because apparently security or ushers were trying to shut that down. I heard from several people about that. There were certain signs that weren't allowed in. On one hand, that's because of sign size. Like, you're just not allowed to bring a certain size sign. That's always been a thing. But then somebody else pointed out that they had one of those Luka, Luka LeBron meme masks, and they weren't allowed in. That doesn't even make sense to me. Somebody had a Fire Nico shirt that got confiscated trying to get in. And then somebody else had a Nike swoosh that said, Nico, just leave. Like just do it. And they weren't allowed in. And these are all just from people's point of views. This is not, I didn't vet a lot of these, but I believe a lot of them. And so it's interesting for the Mavericks to be like, hey, we know we sympathize with what you feel like, but then not allow you to say what you thought on the inside. It's like, all right, we're trying to move past. You can say what you want, but it's got to be out there. We sympathize with you, but you got to keep your voice out there. It's like, okay. You don't get your cake and eat it too, Dallas Mavericks. But they are. You know what? The thing is, they are. They are going to get it. Because the Mavs still play basketball games, and Mavs fans will still care. There was 20,000 people in that arena cheering on the Dallas Mavericks, cheering on Anthony Davis. And Mavs fans are going to, eventually, I think a lot of them will come back, and a lot of them will embrace the team in a way, but it just still won't feel as special. And I find that really interesting in all these comments and all that. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. Check the QR code for different ways to follow the show. We'll be back. The Mavs have a game against the Kings, another home game. I'm interested to see what happens on that one. So follow us. Slightly and I will have a post-game show. Check the QR code, different ways to follow the show. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. We'll be back tomorrow. Peace out. Boom.